Power rarely announces itself with noise. More often, it moves silently, disguised as necessity, wrapped in justification, and hidden behind spreadsheets that look almost ordinary. When Bill Spencer first notices the discrepancy, it does not arrive as a thunderclap. It appears instead as an irritation, a faint dissonance in a financial pattern he knows too well to ignore. Bill has built empires, dismantled rivals, and survived wars fought with contracts instead of bullets. Numbers, to him, are not abstractions, they are fingerprints. And these fingerprints do not belong where they claim to belong. The transfers are subtle, layered through an intermediary designed to look legitimate, even routine. Money leaves accounts associated with the Logan operation, passes through a buffer that masks intent, and then lands somewhere it should not. The name at the end of the chain stops Bill cold. Remy. It is not the amount that shocks him. Bill Spencer has moved far larger sums without blinking, but the implication. This is not a mistake. This is design. Someone has deliberately routed money through shadows, laundering purpose beneath the appearance of corporate housekeeping. Bill leans back, the glow of the screen reflecting in his eyes, and for the first time in a long while, uncertainty creeps into his certainty. His mind does not race, it tightens. He replays conversations, reassesses moments he once dismissed as righteous indignation or strategic necessity. Katie Logan has always presented herself as principled in this war over the Logan legacy, moral, transparent, unwilling to compromise her values even when pushed. She framed the conflict as justice, as reclamation, as a fight for family, identity stolen by manipulation. Bill believed her. Worse, he admired her for it. Now the numbers suggest a different story. Bill's shock is not rooted in hypocrisy. He is not offended by the existence of blood on the ledger. He has spilled it himself, metaphorically and otherwise, and lived comfortably with the consequences. What unsettles him is the contrast between image and method. Katie's public posture has been one of legitimacy, of righteousness elevated above the ugliness of corporate warfare. Yet here is evidence of a path chosen not because it was clean, but because it was effective. Money routed through intermediaries is not about efficiency, it is about deniability. And deniability is the refuge of those who know they are crossing a line. He studies the trail again, slower this time, letting the implications settle. Remy is not an accident. Remy is leveraged, someone who exists precisely because he operates where the light does not reach. Bill recognizes the move immediately because it is one he has used before. You outsource the mess so that your hands remain clean, at least publicly. You tell yourself that distance absolves you. Bill has always been honest about what he is. Katie, until now, has insisted on being something else. The realization cuts deeper than betrayal. It forces Bill to confront an uncomfortable question. Was he ever seeing Katie clearly, or only the version of her that aligned with what he needed to believe? He has long framed himself as the dangerous one in their relationship, the man whose history is stained with hostile takeovers, emotional destruction, and unapologetic conquest. Loving Katie allowed him to imagine redemption, to believe that proximity to her integrity might soften his edges. But if Katie has chosen the same ruthless calculus he once mastered, then what exactly has he been nurturing? Bill's thoughts drift back to the early days of their alliance, when the Logan War was framed as a moral crusade rather than a power grab. Katie spoke of reclaiming agency, of restoring balance, of protecting family from exploitation. She positioned herself as the antidote to the chaos Bill represented. And Bill, drawn to that contrast, offered his resources, his influence, his protection. He told himself he was supporting her strength, not shaping it. Now he wonders whether his backing merely gave her permission to become what she already was becoming. The most disturbing possibility is not that Katie is capable of ruthlessness, but that she has learned to sanctify it. There is a particular danger in believing one's cause is just. Bill knows this well. He has watched men justify atrocities by wrapping them in the language of necessity and loyalty. He has done it himself, but he has never pretended it was anything other than war. Katie's version is more insidious because it denies its own violence. It insists on virtue while sharpening the knife. As Bill sits with the knowledge, he feels something unfamiliar stirring beneath the calculation. Fear. Not fear of exposure or retaliation or loss of control. Those are risks he understands. This is fear of misjudgment. Fear that he may have fallen in love not with a woman fighting monsters, but with a woman who has learned how to wear a halo while becoming one. The idea unsettles him because it mirrors his own evolution too closely. Bill Spencer knows what it looks like when ambition hardens into something predatory while still insisting it is necessary. He replays moments with Katie through this new lens. Her unwavering certainty, her refusal to compromise publicly, her insistence that some battles must be fought quietly. At the time, Bill admired her resolve. Now he hears something else in her words as strategic patience, a willingness to let others do the dirty work while she maintains plausible innocence. It is not weakness. It is sophistication. And sophistication, in the wrong hands, is more dangerous than brute force. The irony is not lost on him. Bill Spencer has spent decades being accused of corrupting everyone he touches. Rivals, lovers, allies all eventually blamed him for becoming worse versions of themselves. He has always rejected that narrative, insisting that he merely reveals what was already there. Now he must confront the possibility that he has not corrupted Katie, but recognized himself in her and mistaken that recognition for love. Or worse, that he has helped legitimize a transformation that would have occurred anyway, simply by standing beside her and calling it strength. The question that haunts him refuses to be simplified. Is he in love with a powerful woman who understands the cost of victory, or is he complicit in nurturing a monster that wears the language of family as camouflage? Bill knows that power itself is neutral. It is intention that defines it. Yet intention becomes murky when wrapped in loyalty and revenge. The Logan banner has become a shield, allowing actions that would otherwise be condemned. Bill recognizes the strategy immediately because it is one he perfected long ago. Turn identity into justification, and no one questions the blood spilled along the way. What troubles him most is not the money trail, but Katie's silence. She has not told him about Remy. She has not shared this contingency, this darker layer of her campaign. That omission is not accidental. It suggests she knows Bill well enough to anticipate his reaction and chose secrecy anyway. That choice signals independence, but also mistrust. For a man who equates transparency with loyalty, that realization stings more than any financial betrayal. Bill closes the file but does not erase it. He knows better than to act on impulse. Whatever Katie has become or is becoming will not reveal itself through confrontation alone. He must observe, test, wait. Bill Spencer has always been patient when the stakes demand it. But this time, the stakes are not merely corporate dominance or family legacy. They are personal. They challenge his self-image as much as his affection. Loving Katie was supposed to mean choosing something better than himself. Now he wonders whether he has simply found a mirror that smiles back. The tragedy, Bill realizes, is that monsters are rarely born in darkness. They are shaped in daylight, applauded for their courage, and excused because their enemies deserve it. If Katie has crossed that threshold, she may never see herself as anything other than righteous. And Bill must decide whether his role is to stop her, expose her, or stand beside her and accept what that makes him. Because if he stays, if he continues to fund and protect this version of Katie, then he is no longer merely loving a powerful woman. He is endorsing the very logic that once made him the villain in everyone else's story. Bill Spencer has always understood the price of power. What he is only beginning to understand is the cost of loving someone who learns to wield it as well as he does while insisting she never has. The most devastating revelations rarely arrive from outside. They do not crash through the door or announce themselves with accusation. They surface quietly, almost mercifully, from within the mind when denial finally runs out of places to hide. For Bill Spencer, the shock does not come from discovering what Katie Logan has done. It comes from realizing what he has done to her by insisting she becomes something she was never meant to be. Bill has always understood power as a weapon. He learned early that victory demands pressure, that moral clarity is a luxury afforded only to those who do not intend to win. For decades, he embraced that truth openly, even proudly. When he pushed, companies fell. When he moved, people scrambled. He accepted the cost because he believed the cost was the point. But Katie was different. Katie was supposed to be the exception, the proof that not every battle required blood, not every war required becoming the monster others accused him of being. And yet, in his determination to protect her, to elevate her, to secure her place in a world that had long diminished her, Bill did what he does best. He applied force. He framed the conflict as honor. He told himself that pushing Katie into the Logan War was not corruption, but empowerment, not manipulation, but preparation. He believed that if she entered the arena armed with resolve and backed by his influence, she would emerge stronger, untouched by the rot beneath the surface. What he refused to acknowledge was that arenas do not preserve innocence. They consume it. Every step he encouraged her to take deeper into the fight narrowed her options until compromise no longer felt like betrayal, but necessity. The moment Bill truly understands this is not marked by rage or denial. It is marked by shame. He sees, with horrifying clarity, that the slide did not begin with Katie's choices alone. It began when he convinced her that righteousness required ruthlessness, that survival meant thinking like him. In teaching her how to win, he erased the boundaries she once held sacred. And now, as he surveys the wreckage, he realizes that the woman he fell in love with did not disappear overnight. She adapted. She learned. She hardened under his watchful encouragement. That realization becomes unbearable when Bill recognizes his next instinct, concealment. His first response is not to confront Katie, not to expose the truth, not even to distance himself. It is to shield her, to bury evidence, to rear out consequences, to do what he has always done when someone he loves stands at the edge of collapse, intervene quietly and take the blame if necessary. He tells himself that if the truth comes out, Katie will lose everything, her credibility, her company, her identity as the moral counterweight to the Forresters. He convinces himself that protection is love. But protection, when built on silence, becomes a cage. Every move Bill makes to erase traces, to neutralize risk, to keep Katie's name clean only binds him tighter to the crime. Each favor he calls in, each document he alters, each threat he implies becomes another link in the chain. He is no longer merely covering for her. He is participating. And participation carries a cost far greater than exposure, complicity. The irony is brutal. Bill Spencer, the man who has never feared consequences, now lives under a suspended sentence of his own making. Every day he wakes knowing that the truth could surface at any moment, not as accusation, but as inevitability. His power, once his shield, has become the very thing that traps him. He cannot walk away without destroying Katie. He cannot stay without destroying himself. And then there is Remy. Katie believed she was hiring someone clean, someone efficient, invisible, transactional. She assumed professionalism meant discretion, that competence meant silence. What she failed to understand, and what Bill now understands all too well, is that Remy does not crave money nearly as much as he craves leverage. For men like Remy, power is not something you spend. It is something you collect. It is the feeling of knowing you can end someone with a sentence, a recording, a file that never officially existed. Remy never erased his tracks. He curated them. He kept messages that should have been deleted, preserved voice notes that should have dissolved into static, and most damning of all, he recorded an agreement that was meant to remain verbal, a contract sealed not by signatures, but by implication. When Bill finally uncovers this, the realization hits with surgical precision. Remy is not a loose end. He is a vault. And the key to that vault contains both Katie's name and Bill's. This is the moment when Bill's fear transforms into something colder. Remy is no longer a problem to be solved. He is a condition to be managed. A man who understands that his value lies not in execution, but in restraint. As long as Remy holds the evidence, he holds the future. He does not need to threaten openly. His silence is the threat. And Bill recognizes the danger immediately because he has been that man before, the one who waits, who lets others destroy themselves with anticipation. The most chilling realization is not that Remy can destroy Katie. It is that he can destroy Bill by doing nothing at all. Bill sees now that the war he thought he was orchestrating has outgrown him. The battlefield has shifted from boardrooms to conscience, from strategy to survival. Katie, believing she was navigating a morally defensible path, has unknowingly handed her fate to a man who values domination over loyalty. And Bill, in trying to protect her from the consequences of that mistake, has bound himself to the same noose. There is no clean exit. If Bill exposes Remy, the evidence surfaces. If he silences him, the implication deepens. If he does nothing, Remy waits. Every path leads to ruin, not because Bill lacks options, but because every option requires him to choose which version of himself he is willing to lose. The protector, the lover, or the man who still pretends he is better than the world he built. Katie, unaware of the depth of the danger, believes the worst is behind her. She believes Remy was merely a tool that served its purpose. She believes Bill's quiet reassurance means control. What she does not see is that the ground beneath her is no longer solid. It is layered with traps set not by enemies, but by allies who mistook power for loyalty. And Bill watches her with a grief he cannot confess. He understands now that love, when combined with ambition, becomes the most dangerous accelerant of all. He did not merely push Katie into the fight. He taught her how to justify the fall. And in doing so, he created something neither of them can fully control. Not a villain, not a hero, but a system of choices that feed on secrecy and reward silence. Remy is the lock. The evidence is the door. And Bill Spencer, for all his wealth and influence, stands on the inside with the woman he loves, realizing too late that hell is not a place you fall into. It is a place you build carefully, one compromise at a time, until leaving becomes impossible without burning everything behind you. Silence can be more violent than accusation. When Bill finally confronts Katie, he does not raise his voice, does not present evidence like a prosecutor seeking a confession. He simply stands there, letting the weight of what he knows press into the space between them. The quiet is deliberate. It is the same quiet he has used in boardrooms when he already owns the outcome and wants the other side to understand that resistance is futile. Yet this time, the tactic feels foreign, almost obscene, because the woman across from him is not an opponent. She is someone he loves, someone he believes he helped shape, someone whose moral center he once trusted more than his own. Katie does not deny it immediately. That is the first fracture. In the pause before her response, Bill sees calculation, not fear, not shame, but assessment. She is not asking herself whether she is guilty. She is asking herself which story will survive. And when she finally speaks, she does not choose confession. She chooses reframing. She steps sideways from the question entirely and turns the conversation into a trial of identity, of history, of inherited wounds that never healed. She tells Bill that this has never been about money alone, never about contracts or intermediaries or names on a ledger. It has always been about who gets to claim the Logan legacy and who has been erased by it. She speaks of Brooke the way people speak of natural disasters. Inevitable, devastating, never held accountable. She says Brooke killed her long before any money moved in the shadows, killed her slowly with reputation, with dominance, with the unspoken agreement that there could only ever be one Logan woman who mattered. Katie insists that she learned early how the family worked, how love and attention were distributed like scarce resources, how survival meant either submission or war. She claims she chose survival. She says that what Bill calls ruthlessness is merely delayed self-defense, that what looks like cruelty is actually justice finally catching up to a woman who has been bleeding quietly for decades. Bill listens, and what terrifies him is not the anger in her voice. It is the calm certainty beneath it. Katie does not sound like someone making excuses. She sounds like someone delivering a verdict. In that moment, Bill sees something he cannot unsee. Katie believes she has earned the right to be merciless. She believes that because she suffered silently, because she was overshadowed and dismissed, because her pain never generated the same spectacle as Brooke's, she is morally entitled to do whatever it takes to reclaim ground she believes was stolen. Justice, in her mind, is not restoration. It is retribution carefully dressed as balance. This is the moment that breaks Bill. He has lived his entire life being accused of corrupting others, of bending morality to suit ambition. He has rejected that narrative, insisting that people choose who they become. Yet, standing in front of Katie, he is forced to confront a more uncomfortable truth. Corruption does not always arrive as temptation. Sometimes it arrives as validation. He sees now how the moral language of the Logan family loyalty, legacy, righteousness has been twisted into a weapon sharp enough to justify anything. Hatred, once aimed outward, has folded inward and reshaped ethics themselves. Bill is not watching Katie lie to him. He is watching her believe. The realization hits him with physical force. If Katie truly sees herself as the victim-turned-avenger, then there is no line she will not cross, because every line has already been crossed against her in her own memory. Bill understands this psychology intimately. It is the same logic he once used to excuse his own destruction of rivals. If the world is unjust, then justice must be taken, not granted. What he never anticipated was seeing that logic reflected back at him from inside the Logan family, sanctified by grievance instead of ambition. He tries to pull the conversation back to reality, to consequences, to the danger closing in around them. He mentions Remy, the evidence, the recordings, the way leverage multiplies when fed by silence. Katie listens, but her attention drifts. She is already fighting a different battle, one that has nothing to do with Remy and everything to do with proving that her pain mattered. Bill realizes then that reason will not reach her the way it once might have. Morality, once fractured, does not reassemble easily. It calcifies. When Bill suggests the most instinctive solution he knows behind the problem, he does so with a grim resignation. He has purchased silence before. He has turned enemies into assets and disasters into footnotes. It is not pride that motivates him now, but desperation. He believes that if he can neutralize Remy, if he can erase the final witness, then perhaps Katie can still be saved from the full weight of her own choices. He tells himself that this is protection, not indulgence, that removing the immediate threat will buy time for clarity, for regret, for retreat. But Remy does not behave like a man seeking money. He behaves like a man who has tasted power and found it intoxicating. When Bill approaches him, Remy does not flinch. He listens, smiles faintly, and then calmly explains the new reality. Money is no longer enough. Silence now has a price measured in control, not courtesy. Remy makes it clear that Bill's involvement is knowledge, his failure to report, his active interference has already implicated him. The evidence Remy holds does not merely point to Katie. It traces the arc of complicity all the way to Bill himself. Remy does not threaten loudly. He does not need to. He simply states that if he falls, Bill falls with him. In that instant, Bill understands the trap completely. This is no longer about stopping damage. It is about choosing who the damage will destroy. Remy has positioned himself as the fulcrum, the single point on which multiple lives now balance. He does not need to act. His existence alone exerts pressure. Bill sees that every move he makes tightens the noose. Buying silence has become impossible because silence is no longer Remy's objective. Control is. And control is most effective when both sides are terrified of exposure. Bill leaves the encounter with the sickening clarity that there are no good outcomes left, only choices between evils, each demanding a sacrifice he once believed he could avoid. The final calculation is brutal in its simplicity. To save Brooke, to stop the spiral of retaliation, and prevent another cycle of violence from igniting, Bill would have to turn against Katie completely. He would have to release what he knows, cooperate, allow the law to do what it does best, strip away narrative, and reduce actions to crimes. Katie would lose everything she claims to be fighting for: her freedom, her identity, her self-image as the righteous survivor. She would become, in the public eye, exactly what she insists she is not. To save Katie, Bill would have to protect her at all costs, even if that means leaving Brooke exposed to a danger that refuses to fade. It would mean accepting that Brooke may remain a target, that the hatred Katie carries could manifest again, that justice deferred might become violence repeated. It would mean choosing love over morality, loyalty over law, and living with the knowledge that his silence enabled the threat. Bill has made impossible choices before, but never one that cut so deeply into the idea of who he wanted to be. For the first time, power offers him no escape. Influence provides no clean solution. Every option brands him forever, not as a strategist or a titan, but as a man who decided whose life mattered more when the system finally demanded an answer. As he stands alone with the weight of that decision pressing down on him, Bill understands the cruelest truth of all. This crisis was not created by enemies. It was born inside the family, nurtured by resentment, justified by history, and weaponized by silence. The Logan name, once a symbol of unity and moral superiority, has become a battlefield where ethics are rewritten by pain. And Bill, who thought he was guiding the fight from above, now sees that he is trapped inside it, forced to choose which future deserves to survive and which must be sacrificed to end the war. In the end, there is no victory left, only accountability waiting to be claimed by whoever dares to face it first.